Hey, good afternoon, and thank you for your patience. Sorry we're a few minutes late. Here we're going to try to wrap this up in about 20 minutes. We have some information that we want to share related to our press release. But before I begin, I want to introduce some of the people who are up here with me. And I'm speaking on behalf of our township manager, Chris Chrisman, president of our board, Tom Hecker, our vice president, Matt Vahey, and Commissioner Bowl, who represent the residents who were impacted, and many of the volunteer firefighters who've been working tirelessly for the last 24 plus hours. In addition to the commissioners, we have our emergency management coordinator, Tom McEnany. We have our John Slavin, who's the chief of police in Cheltenham. I have Tom Scott, who's with me. He's the chief of police in Jenkintown. I have Mike Jones, who is the chief of our Abington Fire Company. I have County Commissioner Winder Janella with us. I have County Commissioner Tom DeBella. Thank you for being here. I have Assistant Chief of Weldon, Kevin Johnson. And I have County Commissioner Neil Makija. Thank you for being here. Did I miss anybody? And I do have my two deputy chiefs, Ed Quinn and Chris Porter. A quick recap. We stood here this morning to talk to you about the fire that started last night at SPS around 9:45. Our Weldon firefighters were first on scene, and they were able to successfully evacuate 60 employees. During the course of the night, we had a remarkable 68 fire companies from around the area come to assist us. Most of those firefighters are volunteers. We thought that we had this fire under control, but we continued suppression efforts until about 10:30 this morning. At 10:30, there was a change in conditions and there was a flare-up. When you look at the size of this building, some 500,000 square feet and multi-layers, the difficulty to access our firefighters out in that weather and with equipment, it's very difficult for them to completely extinguish this fire. So around 10:30, when those conditions changed and we saw a heavy smoke condition, we continued to fight the fire with more companies coming in, and we were able to get it under control later in the afternoon. That's when we had that window of opportunity after consulting with Hazmat and the DEP and the EPA. We thought it would be prudent, using their advice and the incident command system with everybody at the table, that we would have a voluntary evacuation of a 5-block radius from where the fire started. I'm told from our lieutenants and officers and other surrounding departments who are working with us that they are almost completely finished the evacuation. Many chose to self-evacuate. Some took up our offer to go to Cheltenham School District and Abington School, using Abington school buses. But at this point, that's been a successful operation. I just also want to mention that we have the ATF National Response Team that's responding to assist our fire marshal and our AP detectives in this investigation. We're not looking at really any criminal thing, but the origin, they're working to see if they can provide some information on how this started. Another thing that I think is important for you to know is that the hazmat teams and the DEP are continuing to do air quality tests. So far, all of those have been coming back positive for us, so I want you to be aware of that. And ultimately, the question has come up: why did you change course? You know, we were very confident this morning when we were talking that, you know, that through the efforts of our firefighters and all the teamwork, that the fire was almost under control. But with the flare-up and the opportunity, once we were able to suppress that, and not knowing, because it's a chemical fire, unpredictable, that if this flare-up were to come up again, we're not sure. You know, we do know that they use very harsh chemicals, right, in the aeronautical engineering process of making bolts and fasteners. So out of an abundance of caution, we made that decision to self-evacuate. So if, I think I covered most points. I just want to check my notes for, I want to take one more opportunity in case this does not come up. You know, many people in our community are frustrated, you know, not knowing, you know, what's the difference between a mile, the 5 weeks, is this arbitrary? Well, we're doing this based on what our hazmat professionals are telling us, what our friends in the EPA tell us. And there's a really important point where I think we don't think about it until we have an emergency. It's like, why wasn't I notified? Or how can I sign up for these alerts? So I just want to try to encourage everybody, not just in Abington. I know that the county commissioners here would promote this also, but the readymonco.org. If you use that readymonco.org, if you proactively do that, it gives us an opportunity with Tom McEnany and my colleagues up here to share critical information, because we're all getting questions. I have family and grandchildren that live pretty close to where this fire was. And we, as a profession and elected officials here, there's nothing more important than us protecting the members of our community and giving them all the tools and information that they need to make responsible decisions. So that's what I wanted to start out with, those remarks. We will take some questions. I have some experts up here. I have the Jenkintown chief, who Tom Scott was a lieutenant with us, but most of the evacuation zone is in the Jenkintown borough, according to the projections with the wind, and that's how we came up with that area.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay, we're going to start all over.
Perfect, thank you. Appreciate it.
So I hope that I just wanted to give you a brief overview of where we are today and why we made those decisions, and we made those decisions together as a team up here. So if there's anything, any clarifications, any questions you have for any members here of our command staff, our elected officials, I can't thank the county enough for all the resources that they send, and I can't really say enough about volunteer firefighters. You know, it's amazing the work that they do, that get paid nothing to get up in the middle of the night and motivated by just loving and caring for their fellow citizens. So we're really blessed here in Abington to have an all volunteer firefighter companies, which is really unusual.
So at this point, the fire is still burning, and what do you say to people who are trying to get in to get a look at it?
Yes, we have officers from across the county that have come here to help us with a strong perimeter. We tell them, please stay away. You know, don't take any unnecessary risks. You know, we understand there's some people under stress that want to get back into their neighborhoods and we're trying to be reasonable and help people do that, facilitate that safely. But the message is stay out of that area. Allow our firefighters and our emergency workers to continue to fight this fire until we can completely extinguish it. I didn't know how difficult that was.
And then earlier today, we did see, obviously in the Jenkintown area, there's a pretty good perimeter set up with police from all over the county, and it looked like people weren't allowed to go down the streets. Were people eventually allowed to go and get what they need or return to their homes if they wanted?
Yes, you know, we are being reasonable with folks that need to get, especially medicines. There's a number of people. We cannot force people out of their homes. We can only encourage, facilitate, and try to educate our community. But it would be unreasonable for us to go, especially as police officers, to take people out of their homes under these conditions.
Do you know how many residents are affected in that 5 block radius?
I was told 247. I don't know if that's still accurate.
It's 247 homes.
Okay.
We don't know, but I'm told the majority elected to leave on their own. They didn't need bus transportation, and they were cooperative, and others did elect to stay. So we're reasonable. We just try to educate each homeowner and let them make the decision.
At what point will you know about schools in SEPTA?
Yeah, we're in constant contact with Superintendent Jeff Fetcher. My command staff has been in contact, and our emergency management coordinator. I know that Chief Slavin and Chief Tom Scott. Both have been speaking to their respective superintendents. I know that they're going to put that out by 6 o'clock, Abington. I don't have the answer yet, but we made recommendations.
Do you know where the fire started or what the cause was? And were there any transports?
I don't know that. I can turn that over to our emergency management coordinator, Tom McIntyre.
Thanks.
There were no transports, there were no injuries, so we were very thankful, very lucky there. As far as, excuse me, as far as the area of origin and all that, the fire's still burning, so the investigation is, we have investigators on site. As Chief Malloy said, our fire marshal has been there since the fire was dispatched last night. We have, the fire marshal's office has been in contact with the ATF, and the ATF has boots on the ground assisting with that. But so they're working out their game plan on how to conduct that investigation. But obviously, any major portion of the investigation can't take place until we have the fire completely out.
What was challenging about this fire? Was it the wind? Was it the chemicals? Was it the combination?
A little bit out of column A, a little bit out of column B. Yeah, the weather and the wind did not really help. It definitely increased the degree of difficulty for us. I don't know how much the winds were last night, but they were it was blowing pretty hard. The low temperatures were causing icy conditions, and the wind is pushing the water that we're trying to throw on top of this building, pushing it out of the way and things like that. So. All of that, the age of the building, the size of the building, the building, as Chief Malloy said, is 500,000 square feet. So there were times when the fire was in the central portion of the building and our master streams just couldn't reach it. So at that point, we continued to flow water to try and contain it as best as possible. We also focused our containment efforts on certain portions of the building that we knew had some of the chemicals that we wanted to protect from.
And lastly, did it have a sprinkler system?
It does have a sprinkler system. That I would probably want to say you'd want to talk to SPS about. It was out of service. However, they followed all the precautions that are required under law, as far as they notified us. They had a fire watch in place, and I'm just trying to draw a blank, and they have a fire brigade on site. So with those precautions in place, that allows them to be able to continue to operate even when the sprinkler system was out of service due to a maintenance issue.
Who was doing the testing of the smoke? Where were they doing it from and how often?
So we had hazmat teams from Montgomery County, Chester County, Bucks County, Delaware County on site at different points. We've had at least 3 different hazmat teams on site the entire time. They were doing air quality testing both inside the perimeter, where the actual firefight was occurring, as well as out into the neighborhood where the wind was taking any of the smoke.
Mostly Jenkintown.
Yes. The way the wind was blowing, it was almost completely Jenkintown.
Yeah. How often were they testing?
Continuously, but they were providing updates back to the command post at least hourly.
Have any hazardous chemicals been detected in the air or the groundwater?
No. The air, definitely not. The groundwater, the last we checked, was not. SPS had 2 different environmental containment companies on scene, beginning to work on that portion of the operation. That was hindered somewhat due to the flare-up. So I don't have a status on how successful that was at this point.
What chemicals are the hazmat teams monitoring for?
Their monitors will monitor pretty much for any number of chemicals. I'm not a hazardous materials tech, so I can't get into the specifics on how those monitors work, but they're able to monitor any number of chemicals so that if the monitor picks up anything, it will give us an alert, and then we can do, they can have, I guess, DEP do some more specific testing.
There were concerns raised this morning that the chemicals in that facility could combine to essentially create arsenic. Is that still a concern at this stage?
At this point, we believe we have it, so that is not, I don't want to say nothing is a concern, but we believe we have it contained so that that is not a likely scenario. The flare-up that occurred in a different part of the building from where that was a concern this morning. So that's why we're, saying that there's nothing, there's no givens, but based on what we're seeing right now, we don't see that as a likelihood.
Do you believe any workers or first responders were exposed to hazardous chemicals?
Well, every fire that any firefighter ever goes to, they're exposed to hazardous chemicals, which is, I believe, why the state has the Cancer Presumption Acts and things like that, because of all of the different things you're exposed to in any number of fire scenarios. So this fire is no different than that.
Have there been any problems with this facility in the past?
Nothing major. I can think in my 25 years as a firefighter here in Abington Township, maybe 3 fire calls that I can recall off the top of my head. 2 of them involved one of their machines overheating and causing a relatively minor fire, and then another was in I believe they call it a mixing shed that was separate from the building. And that's, like I said, that's over a 25-year period.
For residents who maybe aren't on that side of it, the Jenkintown side, if the winds shift, again, Chief, you mentioned signing up for the alerts.
Mhm.
You have a number of officers around here. I'm assuming you're preparing for if that happens and you have to flip to where...
Absolutely. Yeah, we are, working with, our fire, our police, our county partners that are assisting in the hazardous material operations, as well as the incident planning and incident command portion of this incident. And yes, we are sort of gaming out those types of scenarios to be sure that if something happens, we can adjust our tactics accordingly. The EPA and DEP are assisting with plume modeling and weather forecasts so that we have a pretty good idea of how the wind is going to be moving over the next 12 to 24 hours, so that if there is a change that will, it won't take us by surprise, so to speak.
Sir, about the hazardous materials, specifically the chemicals, was the company able to furnish first responders with exactly what is on site as they were arriving or shortly thereafter? And do you all have knowledge now of what exactly is there? I understand that it might be a complex environment, but do you have that knowledge?
So they were able to, yes, they actually brought their own chemist in to work in our command post to work us through those different, chemicals that may be present, where they may or may not be located in the facility, so that we could adjust our tactics appropriately.
And the facility itself, is there any way to estimate damage, what's possibly affected at this point?
I don't know that I feel comfortable answering that just yet. As I said a little bit earlier, the fire is still actively burning. We're still working on that, so it's still a work in progress. Thank you.
When are you hopeful that people who self-evacuated will be able to come home?
So I hesitate to put any sort of timeline on that because quite frankly, we thought we were there at 10 o'clock this morning, and that flare-up occurred, and here we stand for 4:30 talking about it still. So I hesitate to put a timeline on that, other than to say we're constantly monitoring both the fire conditions, the air monitoring, and all of that. And once we, the fire professionals, the hazmat professionals, feel confident that we have that sufficiently under control, then we will make that decision to put that shelter in place.
In terms of air quality, what are the biggest concerns right now as the hazmat officials continue to do their work in terms of testing?
Well, they're obviously they're using their monitors that can monitor for, you know, any number of different chemicals, and then, you know, as with any fire, any sort of soot and things like that that are just part of a fire. So, you know, with the higher winds, you know, that's where we're focusing on, you know, our partnership with, you know, hazmat team, the DEP, EPA, to give us an idea of where to be monitoring, and so that we can continue to make sure we're covering all our bases.
We tried to keep this at 25 minutes, and so I appreciate, and I just wanted to advise everybody that our assistant manager is working with other members of our command and the fire companies and the EOC to provide updates every couple hours on our website. We'll continue to do that, and I want to thank Ashley and the team for doing a great job, and for what you guys do to help us keep our community informed. So thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry, Chief Scott wants to make a quick statement on behalf of Jacobtown.
So just so everybody is aware, I was confirmed right before we walked out here that Jacobtown School District will be closed tomorrow. They are within close proximity to the evacuation zone. In addition, we want to thank a lot of the partners, especially private partners that assisted us. The Highland Restaurant down in Glenside has been unbelievably helpful to all the first responders, providing food and shelter for the command post and other resources for us. So we want to thank him, Dan Katz is the owner, and then also thank all the partners here. Obviously, Jacobtown's a very small borough. We need our partners to help us in making decisions like this to evacuate. In 30 years of working in public safety, I've never been involved in an evacuation. So this is new business for us. So, but we want to make sure we do it right. We want to make sure we keep our citizens safe, and that's obviously what the goal is for today.
Chief, just a logistical thing, I'm sorry. Next briefing or update that you know of, that just so we know?
We're not planning to, but within 2 hours, we'll provide updates on our website through Ms. McElvain, our assistant township manager. It'll be shared also on our police website. And then if conditions change, if there's something where we need to get together and call another press conference, I don't foresee one happening today. But again, if we would give you at least a few hours advance notice if we decide to move that.
Sure. Thank you.